पहले ये था कि पोस्ट 9/11 में यूज ऑफ फोर्स एक्सपैंड हो गया, फिर सेफ हेवंस के यू टेक केयर ऑफ देम। अब सर सिचुएशन ये है कि मुंबई अटैक्स, पठानकोट, पूरी अटैक्स, तो ट्रम्प ने ये कह दिया कि इंडिया इज़ अ विक्टिम और हम सॉर्ट ऑफ टेरर रिस्पॉन्स नहीं है। और रेजोल्यूशन इंडिया डज नॉट सीम टू बी कंसर्न्ड नॉर इज इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी। Keeping all these facts in view, so sir, what would you recommend? What international forums Pakistan should go to get the legitimacy for our causes and legitimacy for Indian causes?
इस क्वेश्चन के जवाब को मैं बात करना चाहूँगा। ये मेरे 2-3 लेक्चर्स पर मौजूद है इसका जवाब, जो मैं आपको वहाँ पर दूँगा। तो if you permit me, ये काफ़ी लंबा इसका जवाब है कि हमने नहीं किया, हम कौन-कौन से फोरम्स पे जाएँ इस इश्यूज़ के ऊपर और अपनी साख को, अपनी गुड स्टैंडिंग को कैसे बहाल करें। गुड स्टैंडिंग का लफ्ज़ कॉर्पोरेट लॉ में और मैनेजमेंट में इस्तेमाल किया जाता है। तो हमारी गुड स्टैंडिंग बहुत ज़्यादा हिट हुई है, बावजूद इसके कि हम वो काम कर रहे हैं जो कोई और मुल्क नहीं कर रहा। नॉट ओनली हम उन्हें बहुत ऊपर से कुर्बानियों का फिगर दे देते हैं और कुछ तस्वीरें दिखा देते हैं जिसमें धमाकों के साइड्स की तस्वीरें होती हैं। देयर इज़ मच मोर दैट वी हैव डन। यू नो, आपके पास 7,000 से ज़ायद लोग डिटेंशन में थे जो सस्पेक्टेड टेररिस्ट थे, उनकी प्रोसिक्यूशन मैकेनिज्म को हैंडल करना। पाकिस्तान दुनिया की तारीख की सबसे बड़ी प्रोसिक्यूशन एक्सरसाइज अंडरटेक कर रहा है। देयर इज़ नो स्टैगरिंग नंबर। अमेरिका में गुआंटानामो बे में 100-150 से ज़्यादा टेररिस्ट नहीं है, तो उनको उसकी प्रोसिक्यूशन करने के लिए मुसीबत पड़ी हुई है। इंग्लैंड में 50 से 55 के करीब हाई प्रोफाइल टेररिस्ट अंडर अरेस्ट और डिटेंशन जिसको उन्हें ट्राई करना है। पाकिस्तान में 5,000 घेर दिए थे। और सो योर क्रिमिनल जस्टिस सिस्टम, बावजूद इसके कुछ जो मसले हैं उसके लिए बहुत काम करते रहते हैं। एज अ स्टेट स्टिल यू आर परफॉर्मिंग एज मच एज यू कैन। हम उन चीज़ों को शोकेस मुख्तलिफ फोरम, हर एरिया का फोरम अलग है। सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल के नीचे कमेटीज़ बनी हुई, उन कमेटीज़ में हमने एनुअल रिपोर्ट्स फाइल कर दी होती है। दैट इज़ एन अपॉर्चुनिटी। So I'll keep on talking about it in bits and pieces, maybe collectively here as well, कि हम क्यों victim state के syndrome से निकलना चाहिए और we should be given due position of what we have done for ourselves and for international community. ये जो terrorist के खिलाफ है, ये जो non-state actors है ना, ये सब पाकिस्तान की रियासत के खिलाफ नहीं, हर रियासत के खिलाफ है, हर निज़ाम के खिलाफ है। किसी को खिलाफत का शौक है, किसी को झंडे लहराने का शौक है। तो इन सब को काबू करके रखना पाकिस्तान की बहुत बड़ी कंट्रीब्यूशन है टुवर्ड्स द फ्री वर्ल्ड। अगर इमेजिन करेंगे आप फाटक खोल दें, निकल जाएं, तो ये तो वॉक करते करते यूरोप पहुंच जाएंगे, पता नहीं कहाँ से कहाँ चले जाएंगे, तो देयर विल बी अ थ्रेट टू इंटरनेशनल पीस एंड सिक्योरिटी। पाकिस्तान इज नॉट पैकेजिंग इट्स मैसेज इन सो मेनी वर्ड्स, जो मैं भी अल्फाज अदा कर रहा हूँ, आपने कहीं और से नहीं सुने होंगे। बिकॉज ये मैं आपको सजेस्ट कर रहा हूँ कि लीगल पैराडाइम के को यूज़ करते हुए विक्टिम स्टेट जिससे आपने रिवर्स करना है अपनी स्टैंडर्ड स्टैंडिंग को, आप कर सकते हैं, आप बहुत आसानी से कर सकते हैं। सो बट विल टॉक अबाउट इट लिटिल लेटर।
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be discussing the international domestic counterterrorism legal regime. We have very limited time, an hour and a half. This, any one of this, the international counterterrorism regime or the domestic one, can take. We can have an entire week or 7 hours on this. So I'll be very briefly looking at the international regime, looking at some of the laws, some of the Security Council instruments that have developed, especially after 9/11. And then we'll look at what Pakistan's domestic counterterrorism regime is. And this is important for people in your position, because when you are responding to, say, criticism, or when you're responding at the international stage to allegations of Pakistan's rights abuses, for example, you can then quote particular texts of our law, particular sections where we have protections and where we brought about this. We haven't always had the best approach. There have been mistakes that we made when it comes to legislating domestically. But this is all part of the learning process. And thankfully, Pakistan is learning slowly and gradually. We're still in a huge transition when it comes to domestic legislation and how to tackle, from a state's perspective, how to tackle terrorism. Just a quick overview. So we look at the international counterterrorism regime. Then I want to go and look at some statistics and some graphs on terrorism and militancy in Pakistan. Then I'm going to have a debate, and hopefully you'll all add to this, on what human rights versus security is. Because this is essentially the debate, the equation, the formula that each state has to develop on its own. And this is what we'll discuss, looking at factors that factor into this optimality, this balance that is created. We'll then give you a slight theoretical framework within which to put our legal regime. And that's known as the spectrum of violence framework. And then we finally look at the several laws in Pakistan that deal with terrorism. The Anti-Terrorism Act, the Protection of Pakistan Act, which doesn't exist anymore, but it's a good learning lesson of how we went about it. Military codes under the Pakistan Army Act, and importantly, the actions in aid of civil power regulations, which apply in FATA and PATA. But before we do anything, what I want to ask you is this question. And I'm going to open the floor up to anyone who wants to answer this. What is terrorism?
It's an act of violence to spread fear, gain some political or ideological objective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone wants to add that?
Unlawful use of violence.
Unlawful use of violence.
Unlawful is the operative word.
Okay.
Sir, use of violence to induce fear in public for political gains.
For political gains. Absolutely. So what these definitions, I mean, you guys are completely correct. Sadly, if only we would agree like this in the international level, there is no unified definition of terrorism. We all know this has been stated again and again. Because of the age-old debate, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, that's part of it. There are also other dimensions. Some countries want certain elements put in, some countries want something else taken out from the definition. And it's not very easy because violence has been a tool that has been used for legitimate political purposes. For example, those fighting the Nazi regime within Germany, for example, or within Vichy France. Under the law, they were illegal what they were doing. So unlawful violence in itself, from an outsider's perspective, would not be enough to call that terrorism. Because there are different perspectives that we're looking at here. There's the individual who is committing the act, who is involved in it, he doesn't think it's unlawful. There is a state that is trying to prevent it, who thinks it is unlawful. There is the outside spectator who's on the side. The Allied powers were on the side of the French rebels. And they view it in a different way. So how are we going to look at terrorism? Kashmir is a classic situation where the Indians and its allies would want to view what the freedom fighters are doing as terrorists. We as Pakistan, the freedom fighters themselves, the people of Kashmir, to a large degree, would not view it as terrorism, would view it as a legitimate struggle. So violence in itself may not always be something negative, as long as it's targeted and it's in accordance with the rules that deal with violence. So there are rules under the law of peace and there are rules under the law of war which regulate violence. So these are some just interesting debates. So I'm happy we had some excellent answers here. Usually this takes a lot longer with law students even. So let's quickly look at the international counterterrorism regime. Again, I want to give you the caveat that this is an extremely wide area and there's a lot of stuff that's been going on here. We're just going to look at just a sampling of the major issues. One of the sources for modern counterterrorism regime internationally is Security Council Resolution 1373. We'll go into what the salient features of that are. This established the Counterterrorism Committee under the United Nations Security Council and required all states to implement both crime prevention and crime control measures to prevent terrorism and to control it where it exists, to suppress it, to deny it funds, to deny it safe haven, and any form of support. Then Resolution 1535 in 2004 turned the group of experts for the CTC into the Counterterrorism Committee Executive Director. And CTED is basically what looks at implementation of much of the counterterrorism legal regime internationally. Now, what is very interesting, and I don't know if Jamal touched upon this, was that the Security Council changed its role from giving topic-specific resolutions to giving legislation almost. You don't have a binding legislative body at the international level. UN General Assembly resolutions are not binding. But the Security Council can give binding rulings. But for the first time, or one of the first times, they expanded to give a general prescriptive, legally binding role to their instruments, to their resolutions, for the whole world to abide by. And that's what, and obviously it took something like 9/11 to spur this. So we now see the Security Council legislate. And that's what's important. That's what 1373 is. Now this CTED ensures that all states comply with the recommendations of 1373, including the anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism provisions, including the creation of domestic financial investigation units. And we have something like this in the State Bank of Pakistan. Alright, so it looks at suspicious transactions, looks at reporting by banks, imposes obligations on private banks, etc. The best practice has evolved that states should follow the 40 FATF Financial Action Task Force recommendations, and the 9 special recommendations. Then we'll go into these next. Now, what exactly did UN Security Council Resolution 1373 do? It's 2 or 3 pages, so I'm not going to go into that. I'm just giving you the salient features. Number 1, it said we have to target terrorism by denying them the oxygen with which they survive, and that is their funding. So funding through informal channels as well as formal channels have to be targeted here. And that's what they did firstly. Second,
so in the event that the state of Pakistan has any material or evidence, any terrorist group is being funded by a foreign state, charge पता है क्या बनता है against that particular state? कि they are terrorist sponsor. ठीक है? अगर आप सिर्फ ये अल्फाज उसमें अदा करते हैं कि पैसे जो हैं इस ग्रुप को या इस एंटिटी को अफगानिस्तान से, इंडिया से, ईरान से, अमेरिका से कहाँ से आ रही, तो बड़ा सादा सी स्टेटमेंट ऑफ फैक्ट है, ये लीगल डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं। लेकिन अगर आप ये कहते हैं बाय प्रोवाइडिंग फंडिंग टू दिस, जिसके पास हमारा इंफॉर्मेशन है, आपको वो जो आपके प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने शेख शहर क्या है, शाम वाला जो शहर है जहाँ पर शर्म शेख में एविडेंस वगैरह दिखाई थी कि हमारे पास ये एविडेंस है, तो फंड आप टेररिस्ट को कर रहे हैं उन ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को, तो सडनली आपका चार्ज शीट का उन्वान बदल जाता है। प्लीज सॉरी वो तो है, वो भी हमारा एग्जैक्टली आर्गुमेंट होना चाहिए।
Number 2, deny support or safe haven to terrorists. This is something which is very important, and this is something that you saw Trump talk about with regards to Pakistan. You see this, the do more narrative is essentially based on this. That Pakistan has been providing support or safe haven to the Haqqani network and other entities of the Taliban. And this is something which is based initially on 1373, right after 9/11. And so it has a lot of bearing on how we act as a state and how we should be acting as a state. That's what gives them the footing to actually make these accusations, the legal footing. But again, what you can show here and what we demonstrated and what we continue to demonstrate is that Pakistan has taken more steps than probably any other state in its fight against terrorism. If $1 trillion, 150,000 Western troops with the best hope could not deal with Afghanistan, why are you asking a far poorer country to be able to, resolve this mess? There are some problems which are impossible to fix, right? But we have done all that we could in this thing and tried to at least shown that we have abided by 1373. And lastly, it says promote exchange of information and cooperation between states to counter terrorism. This is intelligence sharing. This is MLAs, mutual legal assistance treaties, where you can use bilateral mechanisms where you share information, or you share legal documents, or you share evidence to allow for prosecutions in another country. One good example is after Mumbai, the sharing that took place. This was on a more ad hoc basis between Pakistan and India, but they used the Harare scheme, which was an older mutual legal assistance mechanism between the two countries. There's also a SARC-based mutual legal assistance mechanism. However, that hasn't come into effect as yet. So this is just the same.
ये रहा कि मुंबई के बाद आपको याद होगा शायद मलिक साहब की तस्वीरें थी चिदम्बरम साहब के साथ। चिदम्बरम साहब उन्हें डोजियर पकड़ा रहे हैं कि हमने मुंबई के तमाम शवाहिद पाकिस्तान के हवाले नीचे टाइटल चल रहा है, अब पूरी दुनिया को ये में जा रहा है सारा कुछ उन्होंने पाकिस्तान को दे दिया। और जब शायद मलिक साहब से मेरी बात हुई तो मैंने कहा ये सारा कुछ इनएडमिसिबल है, इट हैज़ ज़ीरो एविडेंटरी वैल्यू। Why don't you tell this world? Tell the world कि आपको जो कुछ दिया गया फोटोकॉपीज हैं, and this is inadmissible. It's no zero. So cooperation does not mean giving information which is not authenticated. Cooperation means कि बाकायदा उसका mutual legal assistance की regional और international treaties होती हैं जो ट्रिगर नहीं हुई ना बॉम्बे में ना पठानकोट में ना उधर। So जो आप assistance देते रहे वो ad hoc basis पर देते रहे। पठानकोट में भी आपने मतलब भिजवाई, टीम भिजवाई ad hoc sovereign courtesy using the phrase from the last one, ठीक है। और इसी तरह आपने जो यादेव के लिए खत लिखा है इंफॉर्मेशन के लिए वो भी ad hoc है, but nevertheless in compliance with 1373 West बता रहा है।
जी सर, just another quick note. Intelligence sharing is not the same as evidence sharing. Evidence sharing is what we use in a court trial. It has a certain standard, a certain standard that you must meet for it to be admissible in court. Not all evidence, not all intelligence, what you get from human intelligence from a spy working there, or you get signals intelligence where you intercept people speaking. That is used and generally shared to allow for targeted operations or to prevent terrorist attack from happening. But as soon as I've just mentioned, the dossier that was provided would not even be admissible in an Indian court, let alone a Pakistani court, because it didn't meet those requirements that a court requires in normal criminal trials. So, quick word on the Financial Action Task Force. This is extremely important. This is something that we've always been on, close to the red line. And there were efforts by Sumisala as well as the state to fix this as well. The Financial Action Task Force is an intergovernmental body established in 1989. Its main objective is to set standards and promote effective implementation of legal, regulatory, and operational measures for combating money laundering, terrorist financing, and other related threats to the integrity of the international financial system. FATF has developed a series of recommendations, and we'll quickly go through those as well. It was first issued in 1990, and the latest update of this is for 2012. So the recommendations. So recommendations 1 and 2 look at the scope of the criminal offense of money laundering, and they require states to criminalize money laundering. All right. Provisional measures and confiscation is recommended as punishments or in the interim while a case is being decided or investigation is taking place. How do you deal with these assets? Because within that time frame, they could be transferred to a terrorist organization and utilized. Measures to be taken by financial institutions and non-financial businesses and professions to prevent money laundering. So how do private banks or private financial institutions interact, and what is their role here, and what recommendations should the state or obligations impose on these entities? And that's what, so due diligence, reporting of suspicious transactions, and other measures to deter money laundering. Institutional and other measures necessary in systems for combating money laundering and terrorist financing. What are the competent authorities, their powers and resources, transparency of legal persons and arrangements, so looking at how entities are established, whether an entity is established as a front for a money laundering scheme. And if you've watched Breaking Bad or TV shows, you know that money laundering is how you get black money into circulation to be able to use to buy a beautiful house or car, right? And so that the tax man doesn't come knocking on your door and find out that you're actually a drug dealer. So this is essentially the same absolutely applies to terrorists, where they need money to be able to support families or support their infrastructure, and that has to be out in the open. International cooperation, what are again the mutual legal assistance thing, and extradition requirements. So if there is a person who is money laundering in Dubai, how do we get him, and if he's sponsoring terrorism, how do we get him into Pakistan to prosecute? Or how do we impose an obligation on Dubai to ensure that he's prosecuted? So these are requirements that FATF looks at. Now let's look at other than that.
जो मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग का एसेंस है वो है कि उसका ताल्लुक किसी न किसी प्रेडिकेट ऑफेंस से होना चाहिए. प्रेडिकेट ऑफेंस इज अ बास्केट ऑफ 40+ ऑफेंसेस. इसमें मर्डर, किडनैपिंग, एक्सटॉर्शन, करप्शन, टेररिज्म वगैरह वगैरह. तो 40+ ऑफेंसेस के साथ अगर पैसे का ताल्लुक है जो किसी जगह पड़ा हुआ है तो वो मनी लॉन्ड्रेड कहलाएगा, चाहे वो प्रॉपर्टी की सूरत में पड़ा है चाहे बैंक अकाउंट में पड़ा हुआ है, अगर वो कन्वर्ट भी होता है. सो सबसे बड़ा जो चैलेंज होता है किसी भी मुल्क के लिए वो ये होता है टू आइडेंटिफाई इन एडवांस द सस्पेशन कि इस पैसे का ताल्लुक किसी क्राइम से, ये उसका नाम सेट ऑफ क्राइम का ताल्लुक प्रेडिकेट ऑफेंस कहते हैं, इसका ताल्लुक किसी न किसी प्रेडिकेट ऑफेंस से है. तो जब हम काम कर रहे थे एंटी मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग लॉ पे 2010 में, तो ये डेफिनेशन एक नाइटमेयर था, खासतौर पर प्रिवेंटिव. जब वकूआ हो जाए उसके बाद मनी को ट्रैक डाउन आप करके कह सकते हैं कि मर्डर हुआ, एक बच्चे को किडनैप किया, पैसे मांगे, पैसे आए, अब ये 5 करोड़ डिपॉजिट हो, उसको ट्रैक डाउन कर सकते हैं. लेकिन टेररिस्ट फाइनेंसिंग पे वो ये जो यूएन हमसे कह रहा है कि प्रिवेंट करें. सो यू डोंट नो कि हाजी बोसन साहब की जो स्टेट है पेशावर में मनी चेंजर है, उसके पास ये रेमिटेंस आ रही है और एक सादा सा आदमी उसको पैसे लेके जा रहा है. हाउ डू वी नो कि ये पैसा विल इवेंचुअली गेट लिंक टू अ क्राइम और नॉट? सो ये उसके प्रैक्टिकल इश्यूज हैं फ्रॉम अ टेररिस्ट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू.
वैसे सर अल्ताफ हुसैन का जो केस है उस पर हम ये फैक्टर को कर सकते हैं.
फैटफ को उसी में मेरा ख्याल है दैट इज द केस, दैट इज अ पॉसिबल एप्लीकेशन देयर, बट अब पता नहीं उन्होंने किया है कि नहीं किया, किस हद तक किया है. बट अपार्ट फ्रॉम अल्ताफ हुसैन किसी भी टेररिस्ट की या किसी और बंदे की जो मूवमेंट ऑफ मनी है इसका ताल्लुक किसी ऑफेंस से हो, प्रेडिकेट ऑफेंस, वो डिक्लेयर्ड ऑफेंस, प्री डिक्लेयर्ड ऑफेंस, नोटिफाइड, अगर आप कह दें वो है तो उस पैसे को फ्रीज कर देंगे। अगर आपको पैसा वापस लाना है वो कहेंगे कि हमें जजमेंट चाहिए आपकी कंट्री ऑफ ओरिजिन की, आइडेंटिफाइंग इस पैसे का ताल्लुक प्रेडिकेट ऑफेंस है, फिर आपको पैसा वापस मिलेगा, तब वक्त इट विल रिमेन फ्रोजन।
And just on a side note, money and the money trade is such an important tool in crime fighting. The mafia in the US and in Italy was brought down not by charging them for murder or extortion. It was on tax-related issues. So you took out the entire net because they were related by money trade to each other. So you took out entire mafias based on this. So it's a wonderful tool. We are not in the, it requires capacity building at the state level to be able to tackle financial risk, because tracing money is extremely difficult. Being able to link it to a particular individual is very difficult, and especially to the high-ups, because usually it's the lower level people who do that. There are mechanisms. RICO Act is one. I'm just going to flash these before you. So there's issues of, especially aircraft related hijackings or so. So there's been a period in recent history where hijackings were something that terrorist groups did. They would take a plane to Afghanistan or to Libya or Syria or something like that. We've seen it in our region. Related to civil aviation, unlawful seizure of aircrafts, nuclear terrorism. This is the Extant Convention on the suppression of acts of nuclear terrorism. This is something very important as well. Protocol to the Convention on the suppression of unlawful acts against safety of maritime navigation. The CPPNM and the amendment to that. The CPPNM relates to nuclear material. Convention on the physical protection of nuclear material. So
इस तरह डिसआर्मामेंट वाला ऑफिस है ना, वो इन दो पे काम कर रहा है, 2005 की न्यूक्लियर कन्वेंशन। दे आर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज 1540 के साथ वो लिंक अप है, और न्यूक्लियर टेररिज्म के ऊपर जो आपका नेशनल कमांड अथॉरिटी का एक्ट है वो उसको मिरर इमेज कर रहा है। So right now the work is going on CPPNM, additional protocol and also nuclear terrorism के ऊपर, because ये इशू काफी ज़्यादा जो है ये crop up हो रहा है।
Just to give you an idea of what these conventions contain, they require you to criminalize domestically any sort of dealing, unlawful dealing in nuclear material, okay, which could potentially be used for terrorist purposes. They also require you to secure and safeguard nuclear material, whether it's nuclear waste or whether it's material that is going to be used, whether it's taken out, dirty bombs, or some things are not made. And the Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material, this looks at the packaging of radioactive material, its transportation, and then its constant, that it is constantly under the control of a state. It shouldn't at any point be अच्छा हमने दे दिया फिर उसके बाद हमें कोर्ट में पता नहीं था कि क्या हुआ उसके साथ. So there's always constant control. These are obligations imposed by these conventions.
न्यूक्लियर मटेरियल्स में एक्सरे मशीन्स तक आया थी, उनकी लाइसेंसिंग PNRA करती है, पाकिस्तान न्यूक्लियर रेगुलेटरी अथॉरिटी। तो आपको पूरा मैकेनिज्म मॉनिटर
Will you die होता है when you have CT scan? That die is radioactive.
एडवांटेज ऑफ दिस, सॉरी अवैस, ये दो और एरियाज में ये रिजीम्स बहुत डेवलप करें, केमिकल में और बायो में। बायो वाले साहब कौन है जो PhD करने की जगह आपको पता, बायोलॉजिकल वेपन्स कन्वेंशन जो है उसके लिए भी पाकिस्तान एक इम्प्लीमेंटिंग लेजिस्लेशन, वो भी हमारी टीम उसमें एसोसिएटेड प्रिपेयर एंड ड्राफ्ट ऑफ बायो वेपन्स कन्वेंशन की इम्प्लीमेंटेशन। उससे पहले केमिकल वेपन्स हैं, कन्वेंशन की इम्प्लीमेंटेशन की जो रेगुलेशंस हैं वो वी टीम का विद SPD टू प्रिपेयर दोज एंटायर सेट ऑफ रेगुलेशन, जो जिसकी वजह से जब भी केमिकल्स आपके मुल्क में एंटर होते हैं और जब तक वो एग्जिट या इस्तेमाल नहीं किए जाते, दे आर ऑल अकाउंटेड फॉर। दाऊद हरकुलिस और रावी रेयान और ये वो सारे केमिकल जिनकी इनकी मूवमेंट्स हैं, उनके फिर ये फातिमा ग्लोब वाले, दे ऑल आर सपोज्ड टू अकाउंट ऑन दिस अकाउंटिंग इज डन इन OPCW इन हेग, बिकॉज दे आर आल्सो वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन में तीनों है ना, WMDs के पोटेंशियल एरियाज है। सो ये चीज़ें सडनली दे आर गेनिंग अ लॉट ऑफ करेंसी राइट नाउ।
Absolutely. So essentially what we call safeguards, International Atomic Energy Agency, को आप कहते हैं nuclear safeguard. What is that? That's literally having a camera on top of the material जो 24 hours उसकी तस्वीर ले, so that nobody's tampering with it. Seals लगाना, ठीक है, independently verify करना accounting system कि none of the material is being used or taken anywhere. That is what safeguards are in essence. Again, very quickly, financing of terrorism, suppression of terrorist bombings, plastic explosives, things that can't be detected very easily, and can be taken onto planes and stuff. Unlawful, we've done this. उसका
ये जो
प्रोटोकॉल
1988 वाला SWA कन्वेंशन, SU, सप्रेशन ऑफ अनलॉफुल एक्ट्स, इसका ट्रेडिशनल प्रोटोकॉल आया है। आपको याद होगा इंटरडिक्शन का इशू रेज हुआ था कुछ अर्से पहले, इंटरडिक्शन एट हाई सीज, और कॉन्सेप्ट ये था किसी जहाज़ को आप रोक कर उस पर चढ़ सकते हो, उसके कंटेनर्स की सील तोड़ना, चेक करें कि ड्यूल यूज टेक्नोलॉजी तो नहीं जा रही है। उसके जवाब में फिर एक ट्रेडिशनल प्रोटोकॉल इस पर बना जिसमें फ्रिवुलस इंटरडिक्शन इज लायबल टू डैमेजेस। दैट वाज एन इनिशिएटिव ऑफ पाकिस्तान। तो तारिक साहब थे जो आपके ट्रेडिशनल से, तारिक उस्मान हैदर साहब थे, और उसमें हमने भी इनपुट देने का उनको मौका मिला था कि ट्रेडिशनल प्रोटोकॉल में फ्रिवुलस इंटरडिक्शन में डैमेजेस की ऑब्लिगेशन थी, दैट वी हैड हेल्प देम बिल्ड इन।
So ये जो सेक्टिव है फॉर्म ऑफ इस 2005 के कन्वेंशन के बाद में आया
ये उसके बाद बनवाया था। ये 1540 के बाद की इम्प्लीमेंटिंग मैकेनिज्म है। सेक्टिव भी और उसके अलावा दो और वहाँ पे सेटअप्स बैठे हुए हैं, अभी कस्टम्स वगैरह के साथ भी हो रहा है।
1988 protocol for the suppression of unlawful acts of violence at airports, the CPPNM 1980s की convention against taking of hostages, prevention and punishment of crimes against internationally protected persons like diplomats, most of you, convention for the suppression of unlawful acts against the safety of civil aviation, unlawful seizure of aircraft, and offenses in certain acts committed on board aircraft. So this is just a list. These aren't all of them, but it's an indicative list of what are the international instruments that deal with terrorism and how they impose obligations on states. So now let's refer to.
सॉरी, इसकी इंटीग्रेशन के लिए UN सेक्रेटरी जनरल ने कम आउट विद ग्लोबल काउंटर टेररिज्म स्ट्रेटजी। वो एक और ओवरआर्चिंग अम्ब्रेला उन्होंने रखती है जनरल असेंबली के ऊपर, सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल के ऊपर, UN और DC के ऊपर, टू इंटीग्रेट ऑल दिस। तो उसमें भी काम हो रहा है, सेपरेट टियर ऐड ऑन हो गया।
Because of the 5 pillars and
5 pillars
uh,
सारे
so I didn't have time to include that. That was in the slide.
और अभी स्टेट के अलावा जो नया वो सेनेट ने बिल पास किया था, जस्ट अमेरिकन सेनेट ने जस्ट, तो अब वो इसको डिफरेंट डोमेन में लेकर आ रहे हैं कि जो फैमिलीज हैं ऑफ दोज हु वर अफेक्टेड बाय टेररिज्म, तो उनको उस लिहाज से भी डील करेंगे, तो उसकी क्या रिपरकशन हो सकती है?
सीरियस जस्टा है, उसकी काफ़ी सीरियस रिपरकशंस हैं। वो अमेरिकन ये कर रहे हैं कि एक्स्ट्रा टेरिटोरियल एप्लीकेशन, एक्स्ट्रा टेरिटोरियल कानून साजी करते हैं। नॉर्मली आपका हर कानून होता है टू योर टेरिटरी, उस पर लिखा होता है PPC, इट विल बी एप्लीकेबल टू द टेरिटरीज ऑफ पाकिस्तान, द शिप्स ऑफ पाकिस्तान। उनके कानून में लिखा होता है इट्स एप्लीकेबल टू एनीवन इन द वर्ल्ड हु कमिट्स दिस एक्ट ऑफ ऑफेंस। सर बेल्जियम ने कानून साजी की थी ना वॉर क्राइम्स के ऊपर, anyone who has done war crime anywhere in the world if he is found in Belgium will be prosecutable, ठीक है। इसी तरह जो US में कुछ कवानीन है जो एक्स्ट्रा टेरिटोरियल एप्लीकेशन करते हैं, जिसमें जस्टा भी है, ठीक है। अब पाकिस्तान के पास भी ऑप्शन है, पाकिस्तान भी कानून साजी एक्स्ट्रा टेरिटोरियल कर सकता है
ड्रोन्स
कि ड्रोन्स के विक्टिम्स की कॉम्पनसेशन के लिए इट कैन मेक लेजिस्लेशन। नथिंग इज स्टॉपिंग, KPK गवर्नमेंट खुद कर सकती है, बलूचिस्तान गवर्नमेंट कर सकती है, स्टेट ऑफ पाकिस्तान कर सकती है, मगर if you are creative enough, if you want to balance the pressure, you know, आपने लीगल लेवर से प्रेस करने हैं ना, ड्राफ्ट ही बनाना है मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ लॉ ने या किसी हम जैसे ने, विक्टिम कॉम्पनसेशन जो है वो दे आर लायबल टू पे दिस कॉम्पनसेशन, तो देन सडनली द पैराडाइम चेंज, आपकी हम भी क्या हमारी लेजिस्लेशन कर रही है।
लेकिन आप उनको चार्ज कर सकते हैं, बट लेकिन ये कि वो ट्रायल तो उसका अमेरिकन कोर्ट में कैसे होगा?
आप पाकिस्तानी कोर्ट में होगा।
नहीं सर, जो जस्ट अमेरिकन सेनेट ने जो बिल पास किया, अब वो उसको
Just is not a criminal bill.
It's not a
It's
criminal
civil.
bill.
So it's basically it's for compensation of a terrorist attack. So essentially, why just and why the Saudis were very angry at it was that victims of terrorism could sue a state, a foreign state, and it did away with sovereign immunity to state guilty. In the US. So a US court, if that state had assets within the US, could utilize those, liquidate them, and give compensation to these individuals. That's why it was such a big issue. And why the Saudis were unhappy about it, because the 9/11 attackers were all Saudis, well, most of them. And so this is something
They
that
are
was
also worried because there are a lot of Indian diaspora there, so they want to sue us. कि पठानकोट में मेरा रिश्तेदार जो था वहाँ फेरा था, कोई लगी तो
and so there were white Americans as well who were targeted in the Mumbai attacks as well. So before, I just want to give you a bit of a context when we're talking about the domestic legal regime, just to refresh your memories. We had a period of terrorism in the mid-90s. We remember this, खासकर sectarian and ethnic-based violence. Karachi में बहुत ज़्यादा violence था. We had constantly heard of this. There was after that a lull. One of the reasons why a lull took place was once a military takeover took place, when you have a strong man in the seat, generally criminals tend to, lie low for a bit. There was a shift in the military focus from your eastern border with India to your western border, the porous border of Afghanistan. And so cross-border issues, because of the US invasion and because of the destabilizing effect it had on entities in Afghanistan, also brought a lull in violence there. And there were attempts at normalizing relations with India, the foreign handling, right? So we didn't have that sort of negative relationship which could have sponsored violence in Pakistan.